The gunshot that killed Zachary Thomson echoed through the streets of Rhyolite, Nevada, on a scorching August afternoon in 1907, and his widow Zelda knew immediately that her life would never be the same. She stood in the dusty Main Street, 23 years old and suddenly alone in a town that had never fully accepted her anyway. Her husband's body lay crumpled near the saloon, where a dispute over a card game had turned fatal. The shooter, a drifter named McLean, had already ridden out of town before the marshal could even reach for his gun. Zelda knelt beside Zachary, her calico dress pooling in the dirt, her hands shaking as she touched his still warm face. They had been married only 2 years, and now he was gone. The funeral took place 3 days later under a merciless sun. Zelda wore the only black dress she owned, one she had brought from her previous life in St. Louis. She stood alone at the graveside while Reverend Hartford spoke words that seemed to float past her like tumbleweeds. The small crowd of townspeople kept their distance, whispering among themselves. She caught fragments of their conversations, enough to understand that they blamed her somehow, as if her presence in Zachary's life had brought this tragedy upon him. After the burial, Zelda approached Reverend Hartford with a simple request. "I would like to continue attending services," she said quietly. "I need the comfort of prayer during this difficult time." The Reverend, a stern man with gray whiskers and cold eyes, looked at her with barely concealed distaste. "Mrs. Thomson, the congregation has discussed your situation. Your husband, God rest his soul, made certain choices that brought shame upon himself and by extension upon you. He gambled, he drank, and he died in violence. We cannot have such associations within our church community." Zelda felt her breath catch. "But I had nothing to do with those things. I am simply a woman seeking solace in God's house." "A woman should have guided her husband away from sin," Reverend Hartford replied coldly. "The fact that you failed in this most basic duty speaks to your own character. Furthermore, there are questions about your past in St. Louis. You arrived in Rhyolite under circumstances that some find questionable. The church must maintain its moral standards. You are not welcome at our services." The words struck her like physical blows. Zelda wanted to argue to defend herself, to explain that she had fled St. Louis to escape an abusive father, that Zachary had been kind to her when no one else had been, that she had tried repeatedly to steer him away from gambling but he had his own demons. Instead, she simply nodded once and turned away, her eyes burning with unshed tears. The small house she had shared with Zachary felt cavernous and empty. It was hardly more than a shack really, with rough wooden walls and a dirt floor that she swept clean every morning. Zachary had worked odd jobs around town, never settling into anything permanent, and they had lived on the edge of poverty. Now, without his income, Zelda faced an uncertain future. She spent the next few days going door to door, seeking work. She could clean, she could cook, she could mend clothes and tend gardens. But door after door closed in her face, sometimes politely, often rudely. The women of Rhyolite had taken their cue from Reverend Hartford. If the church had shunned her, they would too. By the end of the week, Zelda had nearly exhausted her meager savings. She sat on her front step as the sun set, watching the town settle into evening. Oil lamps flickered to life in windows. She could hear laughter from the saloon, the same saloon where Zachary had died. Her stomach growled with hunger. She had eaten only bread and water for 2 days, rationing what little food remained in her cupboard. That evening, as she sat in the growing darkness, a wagon rattled to a stop in front of her house. Zelda looked up to see a man climbing down from the driver's seat. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a clean work shirt and well-worn denim trousers. A brown Stetson hat shaded his face, but she could see a strong jaw and eyes that held genuine concern. "Mrs. Thomson?" he asked, his voice deep and gentle. "Yes." Zelda stood, smoothing her worn dress self-consciously. "My name is Aaron Taylor. I own a ranch about 8 miles north of town. I heard about your situation and I wanted to offer you a position." Zelda stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "A position?" "I need a housekeeper," Aaron said, holding his hat in his hands now. "Someone to cook, clean, manage the household. It's just me and my foreman, Pete Garrett, and 2 ranch hands. The place is going to ruin without a woman's touch. I can offer you room and board plus $30 a month." $30 was more than generous. It was more than Zachary had made in most months. Zelda felt a surge of hope, but also suspicion. Why would this stranger help her when everyone else had turned their backs? Aaron seemed to read her thoughts. "I know what you are thinking. Why would I help someone the town has decided to shun? The truth is, Mrs. Thomson, I do not put much stock in what Reverend Hartford thinks. I judge people by their actions, not by gossip and rumor. I met your husband a few times. He had his troubles, but he spoke of you with love and respect. That tells me something about your character." Zelda felt tears prick her eyes for the first time since the funeral. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will come work for me," Aaron replied with a slight smile. "I promise you will be treated with respect. You will have your own room, your privacy, and honest work. Nothing more, nothing less." She looked at this man, this stranger who was offering her a lifeline when she had nearly drowned in despair. His eyes were kind, his demeanor honest and straightforward. What choice did she have? Stay in town and starve, or trust this rancher and at least have a chance at survival? "I accept," Zelda said. "When would you like me to start?" "How about now?" Aaron said. "Pack what you need. You can stay in town and freeze and starve, or you can come with me tonight and have a hot meal and a warm bed." Zelda did not have much to pack. Her worldly possessions fit into 2 carpet bags. She gathered her clothes, a few books, a photograph of her mother who had died when Zelda was 12, and a quilt her grandmother had made. Within 30 minutes, she was seated beside Aaron on the wagon, leaving Rhyolite behind as stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. The ride to the ranch took nearly 2 hours. Aaron did not press her with questions or make idle conversation. Instead, he pointed out landmarks in the moonlight, telling her about the land and the ranch. He had inherited the property from his father 5 years ago when Aaron was 26. He raised cattle primarily, with some horses as well. The work was hard but satisfying. "You attend Reverend Hartford's church?" Zelda asked at one point, surprising herself with her boldness. Aaron shook his head. "I used to years ago, but the Reverend and I had a falling out. He believes that wealth is a sign of God's favor and poverty is a sign of sin. I believe that is nonsense. Some of the finest people I have known have been poor, and some of the worst have been rich." When I told him so publicly, he suggested I was no longer welcome unless I repented of my prideful ways. He glanced at her with a wry smile. "I did not repent." "So you do not go to church at all?" Zelda asked. "I pray at home," Aaron said simply. "I read my Bible. I try to live according to what Jesus actually taught, which seems to be loving your neighbor and helping those in need. I figure that is more important than sitting in a building once a week listening to a man tell me how righteous he is." Zelda found herself smiling for the first time in days. "That is a refreshing perspective. What about you?" Aaron asked. "Are you a woman of faith?" "I try to be," Zelda said softly. "Though lately I have felt far from God. When the Reverend turned me away, it felt like God had turned away too." "God did not turn away," Aaron said firmly. "A man turned you away. There is a difference. God does not live in that church any more than he lives only in this wagon. He is everywhere, and he hears prayers spoken anywhere. His words settled into Zelda's heart like balm on a wound. She realized she had been holding her breath, and she released it slowly. The ranch house appeared in the distance, a sturdy two-story structure with light glowing from the windows. Several outbuildings surrounded it, including a large barn and what looked like a bunkhouse. As they drew closer, Zelda could see that the property was well maintained but clearly needed a woman's touch, as Aaron had said. The porch railing had laundry hanging over it, drying in the night breeze. Tools lay scattered near the barn. Aaron helped her down from the wagon with a steady hand. His palm was calloused, but his grip was gentle. He carried her bags to the house and pushed open the front door. The interior was neat but sparse. A large main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. Stairs led to the second floor. The furniture was handmade and functional. Nothing fancy, but everything solid and well built. A man emerged from one of the back rooms, clearly curious about the late-night visitor. He was older than Aaron, perhaps 50, with a weathered face and kind eyes. "Pete, this is Mrs. Zelda Thomson," Aaron said. "She will be our new housekeeper. Mrs. Thomson, this is Pete Garrett, my foreman and friend." Pete removed his hat and nodded respectfully. "Pleased to meet you, madam. We sure could use help around here. Aaron makes terrible coffee." "I heard that," Aaron said, but he was grinning. "Pete, could you heat up some of that stew from dinner? Mrs. Thomson has had a long day." "Already on it, boss," Pete said, moving to the stove. Aaron led Zelda upstairs to a small but clean bedroom. A narrow bed stood against one wall with a dresser and a washstand nearby. A window looked out over the ranch yard. It was simple, but it was more than Zelda had dared hope for. "I know it is not much," Aaron said, setting her bags on the bed. "It is perfect," Zelda said honestly. "Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Call me Aaron," he said. "We are not formal out here. Come down when you are ready and we will have some food." After he left, Zelda sat on the bed and allowed herself a moment to simply breathe. For the first time in a week, she felt safe. She did not know this man, not really, but her instincts told her he was genuine. He had given her a chance when no one else would. She washed her face and hands in the basin, changed into a clean dress, and went downstairs. Pete had set out bowls of beef stew and fresh bread. The three of them sat at the rough wooden table, and Zelda waited to see if Aaron would say grace. He did, his prayer simple and heartfelt. "Lord, thank you for this food and for safe travels. Thank you for bringing Zelda here safely. Bless this house and all who dwell in it. Amen." "Amen," Zelda and Pete echoed. The stew was delicious, rich and hearty. Zelda had not realized how hungry she was until she started eating. Pete and Aaron talked easily about the work that needed to be done the next day. They included her in the conversation, asking her preferences for how she wanted the kitchen organized, what supplies she might need from town. "I will give you a list of duties tomorrow," Aaron said. "But please do not feel you need to do everything at once. Take your time settling in." "I am used to hard work," Zelda assured him. "I will earn my keep." "I have no doubt," Aaron said, meeting her eyes across the table. Something in his gaze made her heart skip, but she pushed the feeling aside. He was her employer, nothing more. She was a widow, freshly grieving. This was simply a job, a means of survival. After dinner, she insisted on washing the dishes. Aaron and Pete retired to the front porch, and she could hear the low rumble of their voices as they talked. She explored the kitchen, taking stock of the supplies, the layout, the tools available to her. It was a good kitchen, spacious and functional. She could work well here. That night, lying in the narrow bed in her small room, Zelda felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. The future did not seem quite so dark anymore. She had work, shelter, and food. She had been shown kindness by a stranger. As she drifted off to sleep, she whispered a prayer of thanks into the darkness. The next morning, Zelda woke before dawn, as was her habit. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Aaron already in the kitchen, building up the fire in the stove. "You are up early," he said, looking surprised. "I am always up early," Zelda replied. "Let me do that. You have ranch work to attend to." Aaron stepped back and let her take over. She worked efficiently, stoking the fire and setting a pot of coffee to brew. She found eggs, bacon, and potatoes and began preparing breakfast. Within 30 minutes, the kitchen smelled wonderful and Pete had appeared, drawn by the aroma. "Now that smells like a proper breakfast," Pete said appreciatively. When Aaron sat down to a plate of fluffy eggs, crispy bacon, and perfectly fried potatoes, he looked at Zelda with genuine gratitude. "This is the best meal I have had in months. Thank you." "It is my job," Zelda said, but she felt pleased by his praise. After breakfast, the men headed out to work. Aaron showed Zelda around the house first, pointing out what needed attention. The floors needed sweeping and scrubbing, the windows needed washing, the laundry needed doing, and about 100 other tasks awaited her. But Zelda did not feel overwhelmed. She felt purposeful. She spent the morning cleaning, starting with the kitchen and working her way through the main room. She found rags and soap, a good broom and a bucket for water. As she worked, she hummed to herself old hymns her mother had taught her. The physical labor felt good, productive, honest. Around midday, Aaron came back to the house for water. He found Zelda on her hands and knees, scrubbing the wooden floor. She had tied her hair back in a kerchief and rolled up her sleeves. He stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her work. "You do not have to do all this in one day," he said gently. Zelda sat back on her heels and wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "I know, but I want to. It feels good to be useful." Aaron poured himself a glass of water from the pitcher on the table. "Can I ask you something personal?" Zelda stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "You can ask. I may not answer." "Fair enough," Aaron said with a slight smile. "Why did you marry Zachary Thomson? I do not mean that unkindly. But you seem like a woman who would have had other options." Zelda considered the question. It was personal, but something about Aaron made her want to be honest. "I fled St. Louis to escape my father. He was a violent drunk who beat me regularly after my mother died. When I turned 21, I took what little money I had saved and bought a train ticket west. I ended up in Rhyolite with no money, no prospects, and no friends. Zachary was kind to me. He offered me marriage and protection. I said yes because I was desperate and alone. I did care for him in my way, but it was not a love match." Aaron listened without judgment, his expression thoughtful. "I am sorry you went through that. No one should have to endure such treatment." "What about you?" Zelda asked, turning the question around. "Why has a man like you never married? You have a successful ranch, you are respectful and kind. Surely there have been women interested." Aaron set down his glass and leaned against the door frame. "There was someone once. Her name was Margaret. We were engaged to be married. But she decided she did not want to be a rancher's wife. She wanted city life, fine things, society. She married a banker in San Francisco instead. That was 7 years ago. Since then, I have focused on the ranch. I suppose I have been waiting for someone who actually wants this life, not someone who would see it as settling for less." There was a moment of silence between them, charged with unspoken understanding. They were both people who had been hurt, who had survived, who were trying to build something better from the wreckage of their pasts. "I should get back to work," Zelda said finally. "And I should get back to the herd," Aaron agreed, but he hesitated before leaving. "Zelda, I am glad you are here." "I am glad to be here," she replied honestly. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Zelda rose early, prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, did the laundry, and cooked 3 solid meals a day. The men worked the ranch, mending fences, tending cattle, breaking horses, and doing the 100 daily tasks that kept a ranch running. In the evenings, they all gathered for dinner, and Zelda looked forward to these times. Pete was a talented storyteller, regaling her with tales of his younger days as a cowboy driving cattle from Texas to Montana. Erin was quieter, but had a dry sense of humor that often made her laugh. She found herself relaxing in their company, feeling comfortable in a way she had not felt since before her mother died. The 2 ranch hands, young men named Billy and Sam, ate in the bunkhouse most of the time, but sometimes joined them for Sunday dinners. They were respectful to Zelda, always calling her madam and thanking her for the meals. One evening, about a month after Zelda had arrived, Erin came in from working late. Zelda had kept his dinner warm. She served it to him as he sat wearily at the table. "Long day?" she asked. "Very long," Erin admitted. "We lost a calf to a mountain lion, had to track it and make sure it did not come back for more. Did you find it?" "We did. Pete got a shot off and scared it away. I do not think it will be back, but we will keep watch." Zelda poured him coffee and sat across from him. It had become their habit to talk while he ate his late dinner. Pete had usually gone to bed by this time, so it was just the 2 of them. "I got a letter from my sister today," Erin said after a few bites. "She lives in Carson City with her husband and 3 children. She wants to visit next month." "That is wonderful," Zelda said. "You must miss her." "I do," Erin agreed. "She was worried when I told her about hiring you, though. She said people will talk." Zelda felt her heart sink. "Do you want me to leave?" "What? No." Erin looked genuinely shocked. "That is not what I meant at all. I told her that people can talk all they want. You are my employee, and beyond that, you are my friend. If people want to make it into something scandalous, that is their problem, not ours." "But what if it damages your reputation?" Zelda asked quietly. "My reputation can withstand some gossip," Erin said firmly. "Yours has already been damaged unfairly. I will not add to that by dismissing you because of what small-minded people might say." Zelda felt warmth spread through her chest. "You are a good man, Aaron Taylor." He met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. It was not just kindness. It was something deeper, something that both thrilled and frightened her. "I try to be," he said softly. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and unspoken words. Then, Aaron cleared his throat and returned his attention to his dinner, and the moment passed. But something had shifted. Zelda felt it as clearly as she felt the changing seasons. What had started as a simple employer-employee relationship was becoming something more. She caught herself watching Aaron when he did not know she was looking, admiring the way he moved, the gentleness in his strong hands, the integrity in every action he took. She tried to remind herself that she was still in mourning for Zachary. It had only been 2 months since his death. But if she was honest with herself, she had begun mourning that marriage long before Zachary died. They had never truly connected. She had been grateful to him, but never in love with him. With Aaron, she felt something entirely different. When he smiled at her, her heart raced. When their hands accidentally touched passing a dish at dinner, she felt electricity shoot through her. When he complimented her cooking or thanked her for mending his shirt, she felt valued in a way she never had before. She did not know if Aaron felt the same way. He was always respectful, always proper. But sometimes, she caught him looking at her with an expression that suggested his feelings might run deeper than simple employer appreciation. One Sunday morning, Aaron knocked on her bedroom door before dawn. "Zelda, Are you awake?" She opened the door, still in her nightgown with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing is wrong," Aaron said quickly, keeping his eyes averted from her state of undress. "I was wondering if you would like to join me for morning prayer. I usually ride out to a spot on the property where I can watch the sunrise. I pray there. I thought you might like to come, but if you would rather not, I completely understand." Zelda thought about the empty church in Rhyolite, the reverend who had turned her away, the congregation that had shunned her. Then she thought about Aaron's words on the night they first met. "Then we will pray at home." "I would like that very much," she said. "Give me 5 minutes to dress." She changed quickly into a simple day dress and met Aaron downstairs. He had 2 horses saddled and waiting. He helped her mount, and they rode out across the ranch as the sky began to lighten in the east. The spot Aaron had chosen was on a small rise overlooking a valley. From here, they could see miles of open land, mountains in the distance, and the vast expanse of Nevada sky. They dismounted and stood side by side as the sun crept over the horizon, painting the world in shades of gold and pink. Aaron removed his hat and bowed his head. Zelda did the same. His prayer was simple and from the heart. "Lord, we thank you for this new day. We thank you for your creation, for this land, for the food you provide and the work you give us. We ask you to guide our steps, to help us be kind to one another, to give us strength for the challenges we face. Be with those who are lonely, those who are hurting, those who feel abandoned. Remind them that you never leave us. Thank you for bringing Zelda to this ranch. Bless her and keep her safe. Amen." "Amen," Zelda whispered, tears streaming down her face. Aaron noticed her tears and looked concerned. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," Zelda said, wiping her eyes. "You said everything right. I have not felt God's presence in so long, but I feel it here. Thank you for bringing me to this place." Aaron smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "You are always welcome here, Zelda." Always. They stood together watching the sunrise until it was full daylight, and neither of them felt the need to fill the silence with words. It was enough to simply be together, sharing this moment of peace and beauty. When they returned to the house, Pete was up and making coffee. He took one look at their faces and grinned knowingly, but said nothing. Zelda prepared a big Sunday breakfast, and afterward, Aaron asked if she would like to continue their Bible reading together. It became their new Sunday tradition. They would ride out to watch the sunrise and pray, then return for breakfast and spend an hour reading scripture together. Pete often joined them for the reading, and even Billy and Sam came in from the bunkhouse a few times. Zelda had never experienced faith like this, intimate and personal rather than formal and rigid. Aaron read passages about love, forgiveness, and grace. They discussed what the verses meant, how they applied to daily life. There was no judgment, no condemnation, just honest seeking after truth. One Sunday, Aaron read from the book of Matthew. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Zelda felt those words settle deep inside her. She had been so weary, so burdened. But here, on this ranch with these people, she had found rest. Aaron's sister Clara arrived in October with her husband Donald and their 3 children. Zelda was nervous about meeting them, worried that Clara would disapprove of her presence. But Clara turned out to be a warm, vivacious woman who hugged Zelda like an old friend. "I am so glad Aaron finally got some help around here," Clara said, looking around the now spotless house with approval. "He is hopeless at keeping house." And the meals he described in his letters sounded wonderful. "I hope you will share some recipes with me." The children, ranging in age from 5 to 10, were energetic and curious. They explored the ranch with wide-eyed wonder, and Zelda enjoyed cooking special treats for them. On the second evening of the visit, after the children were in bed, the adults sat on the front porch. Donald and Pete were discussing cattle prices while Clara pulled Zelda aside. "I need to tell you something," Clara said quietly. "Before we came, I was prepared to dislike you. I thought you might be taking advantage of my brother's kind heart, but I can see that is not the case at all. You are good for him, Zelda. I have not seen him this happy in years." Zelda felt her cheeks warm. "He has been very good to me. He gave me a chance when no one else would." "That is just like Aaron," Clara said fondly. "But it is more than that, is it not? The way he looks at you, the way you look at him. I may be speaking out of turn, but I think there is real affection between you two." Zelda did not know what to say. She could not deny it, but admitting it felt too vulnerable, Clara squeezed her hand. "I just want you to know that if something were to develop between you and my brother, you would have my full support. Aaron deserves to be happy, and from what I can see, you do too." That night, Zelda lay awake thinking about Clara's words. Did Aaron care for her the way she was beginning to care for him? And if he did, what would that mean? She was still technically in mourning. People would talk. But then again, people were already talking. The next morning, Zelda overheard a conversation she was not meant to hear. She was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Clara and Aaron stood talking on the back porch, their voices drifting through the open window. "You are in love with her, are you not?" Clara asked bluntly. There was a long pause. Then Aaron said quietly, "Yes, I am." Zelda's heart nearly stopped. "Does she know?" Clara pressed. "I do not think so," Aaron replied. "And I am not sure I should tell her. She is still grieving her husband. She works for me. It would not be appropriate to burden her with my feelings." "Aaron, I saw her face when you came in from the fields yesterday. She lit up like a candle. That woman is not grieving Zachary Thomson. She is falling in love with you." "You cannot know that," Aaron said, but there was hope in his voice. "I am a woman and I know what I see," Clara said firmly. "But you are right to be cautious. Give it time. Let her come to terms with her feelings, but do not wait forever, brother. Life is short. Happiness is precious. When you find it, you should hold on to it." Zelda quietly moved away from the window, her hands shaking as she cracked eggs into a bowl. Aaron loved her. The realization filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She loved him too, she realized. Somewhere between his kindness at their first meeting and this moment, she had fallen completely in love with Aaron Taylor. But what should she do about it? Should she tell him? Wait for him to speak first? Pretend she had not overheard? She decided to simply continue as she had been and see what unfolded naturally. She was not ready to make any grand declarations, and clearly neither was Aaron. They had time. Clara's family left a few days later. Clara hugged Zelda tightly and whispered, "Be happy. You both deserve it." After they left, the ranch felt quiet again. Zelda and Aaron fell back into their comfortable routine, but there was a new awareness between them. Their hands lingered when passing dishes at dinner. Their eyes met and held for longer moments. The air itself seemed charged with possibility. November brought colder weather. Zelda made sure the house was prepared for winter, sealing drafts and ensuring they had plenty of firewood stacked. Aaron brought in supplies from town, enough to last through potential snowstorms. One evening, a blizzard blew in unexpectedly. The wind howled around the house, and snow piled up against the windows. Pete and the ranch hands were safely in the bunkhouse, but Aaron and Zelda were alone in the main house. They sat by the fire after dinner, Aaron reading from a ranch management book while Zelda mended shirts. The domestic scene felt intimate and right. "Zelda," Aaron said suddenly, setting down his book, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said, looking up from her sewing. "Are you happy here?" The question surprised her. "Very happy. Why do you ask?" Aaron stood and moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames. "Because I need to know if you plan to stay, not just as my housekeeper but as part of this life. Part of my life." Zelda set down her sewing, her heart racing. "Aaron, what are you asking me?" He turned to face her, his expression intense. "I am asking if there is any chance that you might feel for me what I feel for you. I know it has not been long since Zachary died. I know people will say it is too soon, that it is inappropriate. But Zelda, I have fallen in love with you. I tried not to. I told myself it was wrong, that I should just be your friend and employer. But I cannot help how I feel. You are the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about before I sleep. You have brought light and life to this ranch and to my heart. If there is even the smallest chance that you could love me too, I want to know." Zelda stood, her legs trembling. She crossed the room to stand in front of him. "Aaron, I overheard you talking with Clara. I know you love me, and I need you to know that I love you too. I think I have loved you since the night you came to my door in Rhyolite and offered me hope when I had none. You have shown me what kindness looks like, what integrity looks like, what true faith looks like. You have given me a home and so much more than that. You have given me yourself." Aaron's face transformed with joy. He reached out and cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle and reverent. "Zelda, I want to marry you. I want to wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to pray with you and work with you and build a future together. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Zelda's face, but they were tears of happiness. "Yes, Aaron, yes, I will marry you." He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. She could hear his heart beating strong and steady against her ear. Then he tilted her chin up and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Zelda had been kissed before, but never like this, never with such tenderness and passion combined. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Aaron rested his forehead against hers. "I promise I will spend every day trying to make you happy." "You already make me happy," Zelda whispered, "just by being who you are." They sat together on the sofa, talking late into the night about their future. They discussed when to marry, deciding to wait until spring so that Clara could attend. They talked about children, and both agreed they wanted a family. They discussed how to handle the inevitable gossip, agreeing that they did not care what small-minded people thought. "We will pray at home," Aaron said, echoing his words from months ago. "We will build our life according to what we believe is right, not according to what others dictate." Zelda felt a profound sense of peace. This was right. This was what God had intended for her all along. All the pain and hardship she had endured had led her to this moment, to this man, to this love. The blizzard raged outside, but inside the house, wrapped in Aaron's arms, Zelda felt safer and warmer than she ever had in her life. The next morning, Pete took one look at their faces over breakfast and started laughing. "Well, it is about time. I was wondering how long you two were going to dance around each other." "You knew?" Zelda asked, embarrassed. "Madam, everyone knew," Pete said, still grinning. "You two have been making eyes at each other for months. I am just glad you finally figured it out." Aaron laughed and pulled Zelda close, kissing the top of her head. "We are getting married in the spring, Pete. I hope you will stand up with me." "It would be my honor, boss," Pete said sincerely. Word of their engagement spread quickly. Aaron rode into Rhyolite to purchase supplies and make the announcement official. The reaction was exactly what they had expected. Some people were genuinely happy for them. Others were scandalized. Reverend Hartford took it upon himself to ride out to the ranch to express his disapproval. Aaron met him in the yard, refusing to invite him into the house. "Mr. Taylor, I feel it is my duty to warn you against this ill-advised union," the Reverend said from atop his horse. "Mrs. Thomson has not properly mourned her first husband. People are saying she drove him to his death with her nagging, and now she has ensnared you with her feminine wiles." Aaron's expression turned to stone. "Reverend Hartford, I am going to say this once, so listen carefully. Zelda is the finest woman I have ever known. She is kind, hardworking, faithful, and loving. What happened to Zachary Thomson was a tragedy, but it was not her fault. As for properly mourning, she did mourn. But she is also young and deserves a chance at happiness. I love her and she loves me. We are going to marry and we are going to build a good life together. Now, you can either offer us your blessing or you can leave, but you will not speak ill of my future wife." The Reverend's face turned red. "You are making a grave mistake, Mr. Taylor. The church will not support this union." "Then we will pray at home," Aaron said firmly. "We do not need your church or your approval. Good day, Reverend." He turned and walked back to the house, leaving the Reverend sputtering in the yard. Zelda had watched the whole exchange from the window, and when Aaron came inside, she threw her arms around him. "My champion," she said, half laughing, half crying. "Always," Aaron promised, holding her tight. Not everyone disapproved. Several neighboring ranchers and their wives rode over to offer congratulations. Clara sent a letter full of excitement and began planning the wedding. Even some of the townspeople who had shunned Zelda before began to soften, perhaps seeing that if Aaron Taylor, one of the most respected men in the area, loved her, there must be more to her story than gossip suggested. Winter settled in fully, and the ranch work slowed. Aaron and Zelda spent long evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. They learned each other's stories, dreams, and fears. Aaron told her about his childhood, his parents who had worked themselves to exhaustion building the ranch, his hopes for the future. Zelda shared memories of her mother, the pain of her father's abuse, the loneliness she had felt for so long. "You will never be lonely again," Aaron promised. "I will be beside you always." Christmas came, and Zelda decorated the house with pine boughs and candles. She cooked a feast, and they invited Pete and the ranch hands to join them. They read the Christmas story from the Gospel of Luke, and Aaron led them in prayer. Zelda thought about how different this Christmas was from the last one, when she had been trapped in a loveless marriage in a town that despised her. Now she was surrounded by people who cared about her, preparing to marry a man she truly loved. Aaron gave her a gift that made her cry. It was a beautiful leather-bound Bible with her future name engraved on the cover. Zelda Taylor. Seeing it written there made her heart swell. She gave him a shirt she had sewn herself, carefully embroidering his initials on the pocket. He put it on immediately and declared it the finest shirt he had ever owned. As winter gave way to early spring, wedding preparations intensified. Clara arrived 2 weeks before the wedding date with her family, ready to help. She and Zelda became fast friends, planning every detail together. They decided to hold the ceremony at the ranch, outdoors if weather permitted. Since no church would marry them, Aaron arranged for a justice of the peace to come from a neighboring town. They invited everyone they knew, curious to see who would actually attend. Zelda made her own wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown of cream-colored cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Clara helped her with the final fitting, pinning up the hem and adjusting the waist. "You look beautiful," Clara said, tears in her eyes. "Aaron is going to lose his breath when he sees you." The night before the wedding, Zelda stood on the porch looking out at the ranch. This place had become her home in every sense of the word. Tomorrow she would officially become part of it, part of Aaron's life, part of this family they were creating. Aaron found her there, though tradition said they should not see each other before the wedding. "I could not sleep," he admitted. "I am too excited for tomorrow." "Me too," Zelda said, taking his hand. "Aaron, I need you to know something. Marrying you is not just about escaping my past or finding security. I am marrying you because I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You have shown me what it means to be truly cherished. You have restored my faith in God and in goodness. You are my greatest blessing." Aaron pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "And you are mine. Tomorrow cannot come soon enough." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Spring flowers bloomed across the ranch, and the sky was a brilliant blue. Zelda dressed in her gown with Clara's help, her hands trembling with excitement rather than nerves. Chairs had been set up in the yard, and to Zelda's surprise and joy, they were nearly all filled. Neighboring ranchers, townspeople, even a few people from Rhyolite had come. Not Reverend Hartford, of course, but many others. Aaron stood at the front, wearing a new suit and looking so handsome that Zelda's breath caught. Pete stood beside him as best man, grinning broadly. Clara walked Zelda down the makeshift aisle, giving her away since Zelda had no family present. Aaron took Zelda's hands in his, and the justice of the peace began the ceremony. They exchanged vows, traditional words that carried profound meaning. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part. When the justice pronounced them husband and wife, Aaron kissed her thoroughly, to the cheers and applause of their guests. Zelda felt joy radiating through every fiber of her being. She was married to Aaron Taylor. She was Zelda Taylor now. She belonged somewhere to someone in a way she never had before. The reception was a lively affair with food, music, and dancing. Pete played the fiddle surprisingly well, and people danced in the yard until the stars came out. Zelda danced with Aaron, with Pete, with Donald, and with several of the ranch hands. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for them. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, many stopped to wish them well. One older woman, someone Zelda recognized from Rhyolite, took her hand and said quietly, "I am sorry for how you were treated in town. You deserve happiness, dear. I hope you have found it." "I have," Zelda assured her. "Thank you for coming." Finally, it was just family remaining. Clara and Donald took the children to the bunkhouse where they would sleep for the night, giving Aaron and Zelda privacy in the main house. Pete had discreetly made himself scarce as well. Aaron led Zelda upstairs to the master bedroom, which she had cleaned and prepared but never slept in. It was theirs now together. He was gentle with her, patient and loving. Zelda had been intimate with Zachary, but this was nothing like those awkward, unsatisfying encounters. With Aaron, there was tenderness and passion, love and desire intertwined. He treated her like she was precious, and she gave herself to him completely, without reservation or fear. Afterward, they lay together in the darkness, Zelda's head on Aaron's chest, his arms around her. She felt complete in a way she never had before. "I love you, Mrs. Taylor," Aaron whispered into her hair. "I love you too, Mr. Taylor," Zelda replied, smiling in the darkness. They fell asleep tangled together, and Zelda's last conscious thought was that she was finally, truly home. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Zelda's life. She and Aaron settled into married life with ease, their previous months of living under the same roof making the transition smooth. They continued their Sunday morning ritual of riding out to watch the sunrise and pray together. They read scripture together in the evenings. They worked side by side, building their life and their ranch. Clara and her family visited regularly, and Zelda delighted in being an aunt to the children. She and Clara became as close as true sisters, sharing confidences and supporting each other. In late summer, Zelda began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited to be sure before telling Aaron, but when her suspicions were confirmed, she could not wait another moment. she told him one evening at dinner, simply and directly. "Aaron, I am going to have a baby." His face went through a series of expressions: shock, joy, wonder, and finally pure happiness. He stood and pulled her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. "A baby! We are going to have a baby!" Pete congratulated them enthusiastically, and the ranch hands cheered when they heard the news. Clara wrote immediately offering advice and baby clothes. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Aaron was attentive and protective, constantly worrying about Zelda overdoing things. She found his concern endearing, even when it became excessive. "Aaron, I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him when he tried to prevent her from lifting a pot of stew. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time while still doing their work." "Not my wife," Aaron said stubbornly. "Not if I can help it. Please let me take care of you." How could she argue with that? She let him fuss over her, bringing her tea and making sure she rested. His love and care made her feel cherished beyond measure. As her belly grew, they talked about names and made plans. They converted the small sewing room into a nursery, painting it cheerful yellow and building a cradle from oak wood. Zelda sewed tiny gowns and blankets while Aaron carved little wooden toys. One evening, as they sat together with Zelda's feet in Aaron's lap as he rubbed them, she said thoughtfully, "I never thought I would have this. A loving husband, a real home, a baby on the way. After Zachary died and the church turned me away, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never be happy again." Aaron's hands stilled on her feet. He looked at her with such love that it took her breath away. "And then I came to your door and asked you to come work for me. I thought I was just hiring a housekeeper. I had no idea I was finding my soulmate." "Then we will pray at home," Zelda said softly, repeating the words he had spoken on that first night. "Those words changed my life, Aaron. They gave me hope when I had none." "We have built something beautiful here," Aaron said. "A home based on love and faith, not on judgment and rules. Our child will grow up knowing they are loved unconditionally, that God is found in love and kindness, not in rigid doctrine." Zelda felt the baby kick, strong and insistent. She placed Aaron's hand on her belly so he could feel it too. His face lit up with wonder. "Our child," he whispered reverently. In March of 1909, after a long but manageable labor, Zelda gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Aaron was beside her the whole time, holding her hand and praying with her. When the midwife finally placed the squalling infant in her arms, Zelda looked down at his tiny red face and fell instantly in love. "He is perfect," Aaron said, tears streaming down his face as he touched his son's tiny hand. The baby gripped his finger and Aaron laughed with pure joy. They named him Andrew Thomas Taylor, after Aaron's father and Zelda's late mother. Little Andrew had his father's strong features and his mother's dark eyes. He was healthy and hearty, with a pair of lungs that made his presence known throughout the house. Pete became a devoted uncle figure, carving toys and telling the baby stories, even though Andrew was far too young to understand. The ranch hands took turns peeking in at the baby, their rough faces softening with tenderness. Clara came to visit as soon as she heard, bringing her children to meet their new cousin. She held Andrew and declared him the most beautiful baby she had ever seen, after her own, of course. Watching Aaron with their son filled Zelda with profound contentment. He was a natural father, gentle and patient. He would rock Andrew for hours, singing old hymns in his deep voice. He changed diapers without complaint and got up for middle-of-the-night feedings, bringing the baby to Zelda and then sitting with her while she nursed. "You do not have to stay up with me," Zelda told him one night. "You have to work in the morning." "I want to," Aaron said simply. "These are precious moments. Our son will only be this small once. I do not want to miss any of it." As Andrew grew, the ranch prospered. Aaron's hard work and good management paid off. The cattle herd increased, and they were able to hire 2 more ranch hands. They expanded the house, adding on a proper parlor and another bedroom for future children, because there would be more children. When Andrew was 2 years old, Zelda became pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to twin girls, and Aaron was beside himself with joy. They named them Anna and Alice, and the house filled with the sounds of children's laughter. Aaron proved to be just as devoted to his daughters as he was to his son. He doted on them shamelessly, and they wrapped him around their little fingers from the moment they were born. Zelda watched her family grow with wonder. Some mornings she would wake up and have to remind herself that this was really her life, not a dream. The love she shared with Aaron only deepened with time. He continued to find ways to show her how much he cherished her, with words and actions both grand and small. When Andrew was 5 and the twins were 3, another baby joined the family, a little girl they named Abigail. She had Aaron's blonde hair and Zelda's temperament, calm and peaceful from birth. Their Sunday morning tradition continued, though now it included the children. They would all pile into the wagon and ride out to watch the sunrise together. Aaron would pray, thanking God for his family and asking for continued blessings. The children learned to love these times, learning faith not from a pulpit but from their parents' genuine relationship with God. When people occasionally asked where they went to church, Aaron would say simply, "We pray at home." Most people understood and respected that. Those who did not, well, their opinions did not matter. Reverend Hartford passed away when Andrew was 7. A new minister came to Rhyolite, a younger man with more progressive views. He reached out to Aaron and Zelda, inviting them to attend services. They went once to be polite, but found they preferred their own way of worship. The minister respected their choice, and they parted as friends. Over the years, several people from town apologized to Zelda for how she had been treated after Zachary's death. She forgave them all, holding no grudges. That painful time had led her to Aaron, to this life, to this family. She could not regret it. Pete remained with them until he passed peacefully in his sleep at the age of 68. The whole family mourned him deeply. He had been more than an employee. He had been family. They buried him on the ranch, in a spot overlooking the valley he had loved. Aaron carved a simple headstone, "Pete Garrett, friend, uncle, faithful servant of God." The children grew. Andrew became a strong, capable young man who loved ranching as much as his father did. The twins were spirited and intelligent, keeping their parents on their toes. Abigail was the peacemaker, gentle and kind like her mother. Aaron's hair turned silver at the temples, and Zelda found laugh lines around her eyes, but they both agreed they had never been happier. Their love had not faded with time. It had deepened, becoming richer and more complex. They still made time for each other, still talked late into the night, still held hands when they walked. Aaron still looked at Zelda like she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and she still felt her heart skip when he smiled at her. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Aaron planned a surprise. He arranged for the children to stay with Clara, and he took Zelda on a trip to San Francisco. It was the first time either of them had been to a big city in years, and they explored it together like wide-eyed children. But the highlight of the trip was not the sights or the fancy restaurants. It was simply being together, rediscovering each other away from the demands of ranch and family. One evening, sitting in their hotel room overlooking the bay, Aaron pulled Zelda into his arms. "Do you remember the night we met? When I drove my wagon to your door in Rhyolite? I remember every detail," Zelda said. "I thought you were too good to be true, a stranger offering help when everyone else had turned their backs. "I fell in love with you that night," Aaron confessed. "I did not realize it then, but looking back, I know it was true. Something in your eyes, your dignity despite your circumstances, your quiet strength. It called to something in me. And I fell in love with you the night you said we would pray at home," Zelda replied. "You gave me more than a job that night. You gave me hope. You showed me that God had not abandoned me, that good people still existed, that I deserved kindness. You saved my life in every way that matters." They renewed their vows that night, privately, just the two of them. They spoke words of commitment and love, promising to continue cherishing each other for all their remaining days. When they returned to the ranch, the children mobbed them with hugs and stories. The house felt complete again with everyone under one roof. Years continued to pass. Andrew married a sweet young woman from a neighboring ranch, and they built a house on the Taylor property. He took over more and more of the ranch operations, allowing Aaron to slow down a bit, though he never fully retired. The twins went to college, one becoming a teacher and the other a nurse. Both married good men and brought them home to meet the family regularly. Abigail stayed close to home, helping her mother manage the household and eventually falling in love with a local veterinarian. They married in the same spot where Aaron and Zelda had married 30 years before. Aaron and Zelda became grandparents many times over. Their house was constantly filled with the sound of children and grandchildren. They both agreed that their grandchildren were the sweetest reward of a life well lived. One Sunday morning, when they were both in their early 60s, Aaron and Zelda rode out alone to their special spot to watch the sunrise, as they had done countless times before. They sat close together on the blanket Aaron had spread on the ground, watching the sky paint itself in magnificent colors. "Zelda Taylor," Aaron said softly, "you are the love of my life. These past decades with you have been the greatest blessing I could have asked for. I thank God every day that He led me to your door that night in Rhyolite. And I thank God every day that you came," Zelda replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You taught me what love really means, not just romantic love, though we have certainly had that, but the deeper love that comes from choosing each other every day, from building a life together, from facing challenges side by side and celebrating joys together. You have been my partner, my best friend, my love, my home." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun rose fully above the horizon. Then Aaron prayed, as he always did, thanking God for another day, for his family, for this woman beside him who had made his life complete. As they rode back to the ranch house, Zelda looked at the property spread out before them. The house they had expanded and improved over the years. The barn and outbuildings, well maintained and functional. The cattle grazing in the distance. The gardens she tended now in full spring bloom. But more than the physical property, she saw the life they had built. A life based on love and faith and mutual respect. A family that knew how to laugh together and pray together. A home where everyone was welcome and no one was judged. She thought about that desperate young widow who had been shunned by the church 35 years ago. She thought about the broken woman who had lost all hope. And she marveled at how far she had come, how much she had gained, because one man had been brave enough to stand against the judgment of others and say, "Then we will pray at home." Those words had changed everything. They had opened a door to a new life, a new love, a new way of understanding faith. They had given her permission to believe that God's love was not confined to a building or controlled by the judgment of religious leaders. God's love was everywhere, available to everyone, especially to those who were hurting and alone. She had learned that home was not just a place. Home was wherever love dwelled. And she had found her home in Aaron's arms in this ranch, in this life they had created together. As they reached the house, their grandchildren came running out to greet them, calling for Grandma and Grandpa. Zelda and Aaron dismounted, and Aaron helped her down from her horse with the same gentle care he had always shown her. Their eyes met, and in that glance was a world of shared memories, shared love, and shared faith. They spent the afternoon with their family, eating Sunday dinner together and telling stories. Zelda watched Aaron play with the grandchildren, saw him lift the smallest one onto his shoulders and carry her around while she shrieked with laughter. She saw Andrew conferring with his father about ranch business, the respect and love between them evident. She saw her daughters and daughters-in-law working together in the kitchen, continuing traditions she had started. This was her legacy. Not wealth or property or status, but love. A family bound together by genuine affection and shared values. Children and grandchildren who knew they were cherished, who had grown up seeing what true partnership in marriage looked like, who had learned faith from example rather than empty words. That evening, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet again, Zelda sat on the porch with Aaron. The stars were emerging in the darkening sky, and a cool breeze carried the scent of sagebrush and wildflowers. "You ever wonder what would have happened if Reverend Hartford had not turned me away from the church?" Zelda asked thoughtfully. Aaron considered the question. "I suppose you might have stayed in Rhyolite. You might have eventually found work there. We might never have met." "Exactly," Zelda said. "What felt like the worst rejection of my life at the time turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. It forced me out of that town, brought me to you, led me to this life. God used even that painful moment for good." "He has a way of doing that," Aaron agreed, "taking what seems like tragedy and turning it into blessing. If Margaret had not broken our engagement, I would not have been free to marry you. If Zachary had not died, you would not have needed to seek work. All these difficult things that seemed random or cruel at the time were actually leading us to each other." Zelda took his hand and squeezed it. "I am grateful for all of it, even the painful parts. They made me who I am. They brought me here." They sat together watching the stars emerge one by one, comfortable in the silence that comes from decades of companionship. Zelda felt profound peace settling over her. This was the life she was meant to live. These were the people she was meant to love. This was the home she was meant to build. As the years continued, Aaron and Zelda watched their family continue to grow and flourish. More grandchildren arrived and eventually great-grandchildren as well. The ranch remained in the family, passing from Aaron to Andrew, who managed it with the same care and wisdom his father had shown. Aaron and Zelda grew old together, their bodies aging but their love remaining young and vibrant. They still took their Sunday morning rides when weather and health permitted, still prayed together, still read scripture together in the evenings. On their 50th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered for a massive celebration. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren filled the ranch house and spilled out into the yard. There was music and dancing and enough food to feed a small army. Clara, now elderly herself but still sharp and spirited, raised a glass in toast. "To my brother Aaron and my sister Zelda. You have shown all of us what true love looks like. You have built not just a ranch but a family legacy of faith, love, and kindness. You have lived lives of integrity and grace. We are all better people for knowing you and learning from your example. May God continue to bless your union." "Hear, hear!" Everyone chorused, raising their glasses. That night, as the party wound down and family members began to leave or settle into guest rooms, Aaron and Zelda sat together on the porch swing he had built for her 40th birthday. 50 years, Zelda marveled. Half a century together. It has gone by so fast. "The best years of my life," Aaron said, kissing her forehead. "Every single one of them." "Mine too," Zelda agreed. "You know, when I was young and living with my father, I used to pray for rescue. I imagined a prince would come and sweep me away to a better life. Then I grew older and stopped believing in such fairy tales. But in the end, a prince did come. He just wore a Stetson instead of a crown, and his white horse was actually a dusty wagon." Aaron laughed, the sound still rich and warm even at 72. "And my princess was a widow shunned by the church, covered in dust and tears. Not quite the fairy tale ending most people imagine." "Better," Zelda said firmly, "because it is real. Real love, real life, real faith. Not perfect, but honest and true." They sat swinging gently, watching the stars, each lost in their own memories but connected by 50 years of shared experiences. Every joy, every sorrow, every triumph, every challenge had been faced together. They had truly become one flesh, as the Bible described marriage, their lives so intertwined that it was impossible to imagine one without the other. When they finally went inside and climbed the stairs to their bedroom, Aaron helped Zelda undress and brush out her long silver hair as he did every night. She helped him with his boots and shirt, returning the care he gave her. They prayed together before climbing into bed, thanking God for 50 years of marriage, for their family, for their health and continued blessings. Then they settled into each other's arms as they had done thousands of nights before. "I love you, Zelda Taylor," Aaron whispered in the darkness. "I love you, Aaron Taylor," Zelda whispered back. Neither of them knew how many more years they would have together. But they knew that however many days remained, they would face them as they had faced everything else. Together, with faith, with love, and with gratitude for the unexpected blessings that had come from a widow being shunned by the church and a rancher saying, "Then we will pray at home." Those words had not just changed Zelda's life. They had created a new life, a new family, a new way of understanding what it meant to live by faith. And the legacy of that moment would continue through all the generations to come, a testament to the power of love and the truth that God's presence is not confined to buildings, but dwells wherever hearts are open to receiving it. Zelda closed her eyes, wrapped safe in her husband's arms, and thought about the journey that had brought her here. From desperation to hope, from rejection to acceptance, from loneliness to love. It had been a wild ride through the American West in a time of change and challenge. But she would not trade a single moment of it, because every moment had been part of the path that led her home, home to Aaron, home to this ranch, home to this family, home to this love that had sustained her, fulfilled her, and given her life meaning beyond anything she had dared to dream. The wind whispered through the Nevada sagebrush outside, the same wind that had blown through Rhyolite on that desperate day so many years ago. But now it sounded like a lullaby, singing her to sleep in the arms of the man who had saved her in every way that mattered. And in the morning, they would wake together, pray together, and face another day side by side as they always had and always would, until death parted them, and they met again in the presence of the God they had served, not in church buildings but in the daily practice of love, kindness, and faithfulness. This was the true Wild West love story, not of gunfights and outlaws, but of two broken people finding wholeness in each other, of a community built on genuine faith rather than religious hypocrisy, of love that conquered judgment and created something beautiful and lasting. And it all began with a simple statement of faith and defiance. "Then we will pray at home." Those 6 words had opened the door to everything that followed, and as Zelda drifted off to sleep, she thanked God once more for the man who had spoken them, for the life they had built, and for the love that had made it all possible. The story of the widow and the rancher was not just their story. It became the story of their children, their grandchildren, and all the generations that would follow, carrying forward the legacy of faith lived authentically, love given freely, and home defined not by walls but by the people who filled it with laughter, prayers, and unconditional acceptance. And somewhere in the vast Nevada sky, the stars shone down on the ranch house where two people had found their happily ever after, not despite the challenges they had faced, but because those very challenges had led them to each other and to the life they were always meant to share.